Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think some of you know that I am one of the 1 in 4 women in America who has had an abortion. And I testified about that recently. I first told my story 2 years ago when this rash of bills was starting to come up, and I told it after more than a decade. I actually hadn't even told my mother about it before I wrote an op-ed in the paper. For me, it was actually a very difficult decision to make. It isn't for everybody, and I don't think it should have to be. So, you know, Mr. Roy, you're right. We have different starting places. I start with the Constitution. I start with the Constitution, and I start with the constitutional right that I have to make choices about my own body. And I also am very offended by the idea that anybody on your side would call me a murderer for making a choice about my health and my body that you cannot even begin to understand or know what I was dealing with. So please do not be paternalistic towards us as we make choices that are our choices. Nobody knows the circumstances we go through. Nobody understands what we have to think about. And by the way, nobody except us is actually, the pregnant person is actually the person that is affected along with anybody that we choose to bring in. And you know what? I would like to leave protecting my health to my doctor and to me. I don't think that Ms. Pinheiro or I or any other person who makes this constitutionally protected choice should be traumatized by being called a murderer. That is just outrageous in my mind. Professor Bridges, in your testimony and your answers to my colleagues, you've spoken about the intersections of abortion, race, and poverty, and how bans on the constitutional right to abortion disproportionately affect women of color. Are these intersections part of the reason a pregnant person's constitutional right to an abortion is treated as different than and inferior to other constitutional rights?
Absolutely. We live in a country of abortion exceptionalism where the fundamental right to terminate a pregnancy before viability is treated dramatically differently than the other fundamental rights that are found in the Constitution. The most glaring example of that abortion rights are treated differently, is the fact that SB 8 is in effect right now. The Supreme Court let a flagrantly unconstitutional law go into effect, and 2 months later, we're still dealing with the fallout from that.
Ms. Pinheiro, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here. I think it is probably impossibly difficult to listen to what has been said today, and I thank you for your courage and for your grace. Another issue that often overlaps with reproductive justice is health coverage. And you highlighted in your powerful testimony that because of the Hyde Amendment, your abortion care was not covered. Thinking about the patients that your fund serves and your personal experience, how are communities of color in particular disproportionately impacted by restrictions on abortion funding by health insurance programs such as Medicaid?
Thank you for your question, Congresswoman, and I appreciate the solidarity here. It is not easy to hear the inflammatory rhetoric, and as a survivor, as someone who has had an abortion here, I am consistently offended. But this is not new. This is what people who have abortions deal with. This is what quote unquote sidewalk counselors are yelling at patients who are going in to get health care. And addressing the Hyde Amendment, I think it's ironic that we've spent the day talking about abortion restrictions, allegedly supporting women and their families, and if we were to end the Hyde Amendment, I would hope that a priority could be to fund programs for women and their families so that clients like the ones I see don't have to choose between feeding their family and having an abortion.
Thank you, Ms. Pinheiro. Dr. Moyetti, as an abortion provider in Texas, you see firsthand the medical harms of these abortion bans. What new challenges will patients and providers face now that Texas has authorized private people to become vigilantes and patrol reproductive health care?
So I'm seeing it right now. We have people that are critically ill and pregnant and need an abortion to save their life, and we're having to delay care. We are going to see a dramatic increase in maternal mortality in our state as people are forced to continue pregnancy. We know that pregnancy is at least 10 times, childbirth is at least 10 times more dangerous than abortion care, and you are more likely to die. And that is even more true in Texas with our maternal morbidity and mortality rate. So I am already seeing the devastating effects in my community, and I expect that this will be getting worse.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I just would ask that my colleagues stop calling us murderers. I do not appreciate that. I yield back.
I agree with you.